Pro, con. Is it time for America to allow prisoners the right to vote? Pro. Prisoner voting rights would make politicians accountable for the conditions of the nation's prisons. In the United States, there has never been a time when all its citizens could vote. In 1868, the right to vote was for white men who were 21 and older. It wasn't until 1870 that black men were allowed to vote. It took another 50 years before women could vote. Less than 100 years ago, all Native Americans were finally allowed to vote. Today, more than 6 million citizens are still disqualified from voting as a result of their incarceration. A new suffrage movement has arisen because more and more Americans have come to realize our democracy is flawed. These cruel practices inconsistently restrict citizens' civil liberties. Many other democratic nations keep their incarcerated population involved by allowing prisoners to vote. These countries include Canada, Israel, Germany, Norway, South Africa, and Spain. Incarcerated citizens have intimate knowledge of the criminal justice system that prison officials, staff, and outside citizens don't. We fail to take advantage of their direct experience to shape policy when we do not take their vote into consideration. The desire of prisoners to make our nation's corrections facilities safer, better able to rehab inmates, and generally more effective, far outweighs that of other citizens. Their lives depend on it. We as a nation cheat ourselves of the opportunity to shape our system around what works for impacted populations when we do not include their votes. Currently, there is no one held responsible for the deplorable, dangerous conditions of our nation's overcrowded prisons. Prisoners having their voting rights restored would make politicians accountable to prisoners and the conditions of our nation's prisons. Restoring prisoners' right to vote could also reduce repeat offender rates. 54%, more than half of citizens impacted by incarceration, believe that voting would help them stay out of federal and state prisons and local jails after their internment. Participating in society by feeling included in developing laws would help released prisoners, making them less likely to break society's laws. A main issue for citizens reintegrating from prison is their lack of knowledge in the many ways society has changed by the time they're released. We can help make sure that incarcerated citizens stay informed about changes by adding motivation for them to stay engaged with politics through the practice of voting. It's essential our government takes a serious stand against decades of its dehumanization of prisoners through overly punishing legislation. We can begin by restoring incarcerated citizens' voting rights. Our nation is much too focused on punishment. The aspect of rehabilitating inmates within corrections departments, along with rebuilding trust in government, can be strengthened by fully enfranchising all of our nation's citizens, including those who are incarcerated.